G'day guys, Nick and Jack here from The Unaffected. On this episode we speak with Ryan Boyd, whose dad and best friend both suffered spinal cord injuries, and then just a few years later he sustained one himself. Stay tuned as we speak with him about the impact the injuries had on his family, the unbelievable similarities between his dad's and his accident, and he reveals what was going through his head as he laid there on the ground unable to move. Hello and welcome. You're listening to The Unaffected, the podcast where we share the unheard stories of those affected by a loved one's disability, illness, or condition. My name is Nick, and with me as always is Jack, and we are lucky enough to be brought to you by Australia's best boutique care agency, CareMatch Australia. Check out their social media pages on Instagram and Facebook for all your caring needs.
Today, guys, we have Ryan Boyd on as our guest. Ryan has a unique story with several perspectives of the effect of disabilities. Dirt bikes have been an integral part of Ryan's life from a young age. Ryan competed at higher levels nationally in the sport of motocross up until the age of 19, and through this exposure he has witnessed some life-changing injuries that have resulted in lifelong disability. At the age of 10, Ryan witnessed his father's dirt bike accident on the family farm that left him with partial paralysis. Ryan witnessed his dad's journey through an extensive rehab process to eventually return to assisted walking and regain the ability to perform many daily functions that he had lost. Several years after his dad's accident, Ryan's close family friend, track rival and training partner Blake Colleton, who was contending the number one position in national ranks, crashed at a national event that left him with complete paralysis from the chest down. Finally, at age 19, while practicing on the Sunshine Coast, Ryan crashed his dirt bike, sustaining a devastating injury that left him with quadriplegia, completely paralysed from the chest down with partial function remaining in his arms and shoulders. Ryan is here today to share his experiences as a son and friend of people living with disability, and also his own experience of the effect that his disability has had on those closest to him. Thanks for coming in, Ryan.
No worries. Thanks for having me. What's going on, lads?
Let's start with your first experience with spinal cord injuries and disability. What do you remember about your dad's accident?
Well, I remember, Jesus, I remember it was Boxing Day 2006. It was just another normal Boxing Day. We usually go down to the family farm, got a track down there that we always ride, and I was riding around, and then, towards the end of the day, Dad was on the ground and wasn't really moving a lot. Not that was really much kind of concern for me. I was kind of 10, didn't really think too much about it. We thought maybe a broken leg or something like that. We weren't really too alarmed with it. He got airlifted out, they airlifted him out of the farm, and we were meant to take him to Lismore Hospital. But with the severity, obviously them knowing a lot more than we do, they decided to take him to the PA hospital, where all spinal injuries do end up, if you're a Queensland resident. So we didn't really know too much about it. It wasn't until kind of the next day, we kind of rushed home and things seemed a little bit more serious then, but, being young, didn't really think too much about it.
When you say we, is that like your mum included, or were they sort of keeping that from you guys, didn't want to worry you?
No, I think we were all kind of very in the dark at that point. I think mum probably was keeping things a little bit more quiet, but I think generally we just didn't know. It wasn't until I think we first went to the hospital that we kind of knew, or mum knew the severity of what was going on. Me and my sister Megan, we're young. I don't think you really process something that catastrophic at that age to the full extent, really.
Do you know what his prognosis was from the start? Was it?
He was quite lucky. He the way he had his accident was he compressed his chest, and kind of touched the cord out through the back, and it kind of touched the cord and took a bit of the coating off the cord. So they were very hesitant at that point to operate. So they just they put him in a bed for 8 weeks and rotated him every 4 hours. I've done a week in bed rest. It's a long old stint. Do that for 8 weeks and be rolled every 4 hours on your shoulder. it doesn't sound like much fun.
And at that stage, did he have paralysis?
Yeah, so there was no movement. Not a lot of movement. There wasn't a lot of movement for 5 or 6 weeks.
What level was it?
T4. So roughly around your chest,
How long was he in hospital for in total?
I'd like to say about 6 months.
Yep.
When you're 10, 6 months seems like a very, very long time. But I think it was around that. I think it was around 6 months before he got discharged and come back home full time. He was coming in and out of staying at the weekends after probably 3 or 4 months when he was kind of a lot stronger. And then as I say, 6 months before he was fully discharged.
When your dad got home from hospital, how did your home life change?
Home life changed. Well, I think, to be honest, really not a lot. Mum and Dad done quite a solid job of just getting on with things, and me and Megan, still letting us be kids. Me and Megan still fought like cat and dog, even though everyone who knew the severity of Mum and Dad's injury said, "Oh, be good, be good for your parents." But at that age, it goes in one ear and out the other. So yeah, not much change. I was, they just got up and got on with it, which I think, looking back now, I think was huge. Not to really cause a sense of panic between us. Things just carry on as normal. Dad is still dad at the end of the day. Whether he's in a chair or not, that doesn't change. Maybe me and Megan used to, if we were in trouble, you'd kind of run up the stairs just far enough away, so you couldn't,
He couldn't get you.
or but don't ever come down those stairs because, so you'll catch when you're least expecting it.
So he was in a chair when he first got home?
Yeah, when he first got home, he was in a chair, very weak. I think, and he's, it kind of started, the big toe moved, and then gradually got more and more. But when he left the unit, he could stand, take a few steps, and that was about it. And then from there, he kind of worked really hard to regain everything that he has.
So did you have to help more around the house and stuff to help out, or just to help your mum out a bit more?
Look, to be honest, I don't think there's any more I could have done. I was just an exemplary kid. I was doing the washing, making the dinners,
doing everything.
I was doing everything. Mum didn't have to worry about anything.
Geez, you're a good 10-year-old, aren't you?
Oh, dude. And still to this day, I'm just exactly the same. Ask anyone, they'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm sure Megan will say that too. Same thing.
Yeah. They'd back me up 100%.
Yeah.
All right, no, that's an absolute lie. No. But yeah, same again. Nothing actually changed it. Just let us be. They just done a good job at letting us be kids still. And they, just kind of carried on with how things always were.
It must be pretty hard as parents trying to hide that from your kids. Obviously, your dad was going through a life-changing experience, and he's in a lot of pain these days, so I'm sure he was in a lot of pain then. So it's pretty selfless when you think about it. Going through all that, trying to suppress it all in front of your kids.
Yeah, massively. Behind, there's probably more going on than what we saw. But, and the same side of the coin, flip side of the token, we were kind of me and Megan were the driving force for Dad, to push as hard as he did. He wanted to kind of give us the best version of him. So, we would drive, we were the reason, probably a lot of the reason that helped him get back on his feet.
I imagine as hard as it would have been for your parents to try to put on a brave face and not show that anything's wrong, and almost help as well. You think just being able to see your kids being kids, normal kids, you got all this other stuff going on behind the scenes, just being able to have that normality would probably help a lot as well, I'd think. Yeah,
I think it's just something that as a family we've always done. You just kind of get up and get on with it. What's happened. You can't change that. But, if you just get up and get on with it, every day it's a new day and keep fighting. It's amazing what you can get to in the end.
No point dwelling on it?
No, not a lot. No, not really.
Your dad obviously would have played a big role in your hobbies and your sports and your motocross back then. How did that change after his accident as far as getting to the track and getting around? I
was very fortunate. Dad had a lot of good people, that he was friends with, and I had a best mate that I rode with every weekend, and his dad kind of stepped up and picked me up every weekend, and we went riding. For a long while. We're still best friends to today. Like I was every weekend I was sleeping at his house, and we'd go riding, or we'd go down to our farm, or kind of wherever he went to ride, I was there with him. Like we had matching bikes and everything that year. Like it was. So I was very fortunate in that sense that, my riding, I could still go and ride. We played soccer together, so we played in the same soccer team. I was just very fortunate I could keep doing what I'm doing. So none of that ever stopped. I never had to give up anything because of Dad's injury, or they never stopped me riding bikes, even though Dad had an injury on a bike. I was actually very fortunate in that sense.
I feel like apart from the nature of the injury or the disability that people experience, one of the main factors that determines their experiences after that onset is the people that you have around you. Like that can completely make or break that situation, or make it infinitely harder.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're only ever as good as the people you have around you. I learned that very quickly. I don't know about you, Nick.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Like, you learn very quickly, like family's probably one of the most important things. And then you learn very quickly who your friends are. Very, very quickly. Like, there's a lot of guys posting on Facebook that they're going to come and see you and wish the world. I'm still waiting to see them in the flesh.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've said the same thing from the start that, I'm not sure you've been told the same, like, oh, you're so resilient, so good to keep going on like you do. And I've always said, like, without the people around you supporting you, there's no way you can get on with it the way you do. Like some people, I was in rehab with someone that had no one come visit them, no one doing anything for them behind the scenes. They were just there on their own, and that they found it a lot more difficult. And I probably would have been exactly the same. Just to have there on your own with no one supporting you make things so much harder.
Yeah, definitely. It's just a lot more pieces to pick up. Like, many hands make light work at the end of the day. Like, and the better the people are around you, the stronger you can be, the less you have to worry about it. It's amazing. And you really learn who your friends are, because after that I learned you can count them on one hand how, you bet who the mates you can rely on are.
Do you guys feel in those early stages as well, when you're coming to terms with losing so much and you're facing such an uphill battle, it's a good motivating force, wanting to be the best version of you for the people around you as well?
Yeah, I think I know in my instance, it's as much of you're putting a brave face as much as they are. I think they're putting, vice, like they're trying to be strong for you as you're trying to be strong for them. I think it's a team effort. It doesn't mean there's not hard days, but if everyone's kind of working towards a goal, like it makes things a lot easier.
Fast forward to 2014, and your close family friend and training partner and your rival on the track, Blake Colleton, sustains his injury. He wasn't as lucky as your dad. Not lucky that they both had accidents, but Blake's was a more complete injury, and Blake didn't regain the use of his legs. How did that affect you mentally, seeing Blake go through that?
I think initially it didn't really hit me that hard. Like me and Blake were in the exact same race. He had his injury and I actually crashed at the same jump probably a couple of laps before he did. Obviously nowhere near as severe. But initially I think it hit the old man a lot harder. Like, Blake, we rode together 4 times a week. We pitted next to each other at the track. And I just kind of remember him going to Race Safe, which is kind of like the medical crew, and they just wouldn't really say a lot. And when they're not saying a lot, it's usually pretty serious. And with the old man, him personally going through that, he kind of knew, he knows what that's like. I remember we packed up that afternoon. We were in Wonthaggi, Victoria, so like in the Gippsland region, and I think it's like 23 hours to drive home. We were home in 25. Like the old man just freight trained through the night, just not in a great headspace, just kind of dwelling over it. I remember going to sleep at 8 o'clock and I woke up and he was still trucking. We woke up in Coonabarabran with 8 hours to go to get home. But yeah, like I didn't really, when you haven't really gone through it, it's kind of hard to put yourself in that position to really understand. It was more kind of like afterwards, like when we, once you start going back to the track and stuff, there's a big kind of hole missing there, especially with Blake's always there. We're always pushing each other and that wasn't there. I think that's kind of when it hit me the most. And bar that, everyone, always used to say, like, I don't know how Blake deals with it, like, being as young as he was when he had his injury. Like, I always thought, like, I always took my hat off to him. Like, I just could never fathom it, like, dealing with that kind of injury.
Did it bring up any old emotions from, like, your dad's injury? Bring anything up for you? Or?
No, not really. Not really. Like, at that age, when I was 17 or 18, I didn't really dwell on stuff too much. I kind of like, and you always kind of think like, Dad had a good recovery, so why wouldn't Blake have a good recovery? So, it didn't really bring up much for me. And when you're 18, you kind of think you're invincible and you don't really dwell on things too much. So you just kind of keep pressing forward. Like, what do you do?
You've said that your injury and disabilities changed your relationship with some mates, and you're still waiting for some of them to show up and catch up with you. How did Blake's injury change your relationship with him?
As I said, like, it just, you kind of just left a big hole, like, at the track. Like, the main man that you're always there to kind of see and race and chat to just kind of wasn't there. And a bit like everything, even without injuries, you kind of, Blake lived in, northern New South Wales. I was living in Brisbane. I was trying to be a real estate agent, trying to train and ride a dirt bike. So, without having that common meeting point every week, it is very easy to kind of drift apart. So we probably weren't as close after the injury as, we had been. But it's one of those things but when I had my injury, Blake was there. He come to see me every couple of weeks. Would spend a ton of time with me, and we'd just hang out and just be friends. Like, it was it really did help me at that point, having a mate that was in a similar situation that, and we didn't talk about really dirt bikes. We didn't really talk about the injury. We're just hanging out, just being friends.
Yeah, it's not so much that the injury itself changed things between you. It was just more so that, because of the injury, he wasn't at the motocross with you, just at the same meeting points being there.
Yeah, and and at that point, like, it was a pretty hectic schedule. Like, when you're trying to race under 19s and do the state stuff and then do the local stuff, and then I was a real estate agent at that point, so I'm you working big hours, 4 to 5 days a week, and trying to train on top of that. Naturally, you just kind of it's hard to kind of catch up.
Do you think as well it would have been hard for you to hang out with Blake at that stage, because dirt bikes and motocross was still such a big part of your life, and that had been taken away from Blake, so it would have been hard for you. You couldn't really talk about what you'd been up to and how you were racing in case that was hurtful for him to hear?
I think I can kind of relate to it now. When I had my injury, I used to go and see Blake every week when he was in the PA. Once I finished work, I go and see him, hang out for a couple of hours, and I never really wanted to bring up dirt bikes. And a lot of guys were the same when I had my injury, but it was kind of nice to go see him and not really have to talk about dirt bikes. You just kind of hang out. You never, I didn't really want to bring up anything that might kind of hurt him or stop with his progression. So
it might have been a positive thing for your friendship, because it forced it to evolve, and I suppose go a little bit deeper or branch you out from just that common love you've had of bikes. Yeah,
pretty much.
So at this stage, you'd seen your dad have a spinal cord injury and your best mate have a spinal cord injury, both from dirt bikes. Is there any part of you that thought you maybe should stop riding?
I I think this was this sounds like a weekly conversation I would have had with my mum. I think that was her number one topic was, why did you just hang up the boots? Why don't but when you're 18, 19, you're pretty much invincible, like really.
Yeah, it's not going to happen to me.
No, like if you told me, first one out that door tonight would roll an ankle, I'd fight you to be the first one out that door, like just to see if it actually happened. Like, so like there was no really stopping me. Like I knew the risk. Like every time I swung the leg over the bike, I knew the risk, but I had faith in my ability to ride a dirt bike that won't happen to me. And I think if you ever had that doubt that it was going to happen to you, you probably wouldn't do it. You would have hung up the boots and moved on to something else, something maybe a little bit safer. But yeah, no, there was no point in it. There was no point in me that ever thought time to give this up. I wanted to give it a crack for a couple of years, see how far I could get with it, and then assess it from there. But I didn't get that long.
So you said your mum was real worried. Was your dad ever worried as well? Ever chat to you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I don't think many people that their kids that race dirt bikes at a high level. I don't think I don't think anyone's ever really comfortable with the risk. But you kind of put it to the side and you kind of have faith, and it's what you've always done. You got to be kind of really unlucky to kind of end up in the situation I am. But it's what I wanted to do. You couldn't tell me anything else. I was pretty stubborn in that, like with that. So like they weren't going to change it. So they may as well, they just kind of jumped on board and just kind of help support me and do what I want them to do.
With a lot of things, I think if you go in there worried about getting hurt or thinking having that in the back of your mind, a lot of the time with anything is when you do get hurt a bit more often. Sometimes I feel like it sometimes actually helps going in there with the confidence in your own ability. Well,
it's like being a boxer or a UFC fighter. Like, if you thought the other guy was going to beat the shit out of you every time, you stepped in the cage, you'd never get in there, would you?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to kind of have that self-belief, that it won't happen to you. Like, and it's the same thing. I've had conversations with people that, if you were to walk again tomorrow, what wouldn't you do? And you get to the point where, geez, what would you really do? Like, driving a car's a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you sit at home and not do anything?
Yeah, that's what I say as well. It's not about wrapping yourself up in bubble wrap and not taking any risks, but being a bit calculated with it, just not being ridiculous and thinking things through a bit. And
I think probably being around the spinal unit when I was 10, I saw there was so many people in there with injuries with everything but riding a dirt bike. I think I got a sense that, Dad was lucky to have his injury riding a dirt bike because he was kind of like asking for it. He was pushing the boundaries. There were so many people in there, they were, tripped over coffee rugs or moving mattresses and they fell on them, fell awkwardly, or, tripped over their dog, or just, someone was cleaning a ceiling fan and fell off the bed. Like, just all these mundane, everyday things. So I kind of thought, well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, isn't it? Like, whether I ride a dirt bike or not, like, maybe there's a higher chance of it riding a dirt bike, but there's nothing to say that it won't happen, me cleaning the fan, because I was doing all the housework, you remember?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, that's a really good point. I think something that hasn't been raised yet on any of these episodes is, that it could happen anyway. There's no point people hiding under anything, just not getting out there and living your life, because these things can happen to anyone, and they have happened to us and other people we've interviewed, to loved ones of them. To get out there and not be scared, but if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
There's a life to be lived. Like, if riding a dirt bike makes you happy, well, then go for it.
Just weighing up that risk-reward relationship, I suppose, without being careless, but some things
it's not trying to, ride a dirt bike's one thing, but trying to do a double backflip when you're not ready for it, so that's a whole nother story, isn't it?
So a couple of years after Blake and just under a decade after your dad, you sustained a spinal cord injury yourself as a result of a crash up on the sunny coast. Tell us about the day of your accident and what you remember.
It's really funny, the day of my accident. I remember, as I always done, we're getting ready to go back and race a national. We were meant to go to Murray Bridge, South Australia, for a round of the nationals, and I'd hurt my shoulder in February, so I was kind of just coming back to racing. So because Murray Bridge is sandy, we everyone goes and rides Coolum, the sunny coast, beforehand that week just to get a bit of sand practice in. So we're up there doing that. So it was kind of like almost like a mini national. All the Queensland guys that were racing were there. All the guys I regularly rode with that, that were top 5 in the open class, top 5 in the pro lights. We were all up there practicing, and I remember sitting in the back of my van, and one of the guys that you'd have met him, come to Strides, Harley Quinlan.
Yeah,
he was there rolling around the pits. He had sustained a T-level injury 5 or 6 years before I previously. I remember him just rolling around the pits, and he was so happy. He was talking to everyone, having so much fun. And I just remember sitting in the back of the van thinking, like, just in awe of like how he's just got on with his life, and hanging around the pits and really enjoying himself. And then little did I know, 2 hours later I'd be laying on the track, didn't know where my legs were, couldn't really feel my hands, with just a massive pain in the back of my neck, laying in the sand, which felt like hours, but could have only been 20 minutes, just waiting for the ambos to turn up. And just everyone kind of just being around there and just knowing something serious was going on. And then being airlifted to the PA, where I met my parents and had just clicked on it. It was the old man's birthday, which really didn't help the situation too much.
So you remember like the exact feeling of laying there after it happening, and you remember that whole experience?
Oh yeah, I think I might have blacked out for a little bit. I just kind of remember coming to with my old man, with my best friend's old man. He kind of rushed there and said, "Oh, are you all good? Like, can you feel your legs? You know where they are?" I'm assuming they must have been in some really awkward positions. I had no idea where they were. They could have been wrapped around my head for all I knew. And just a massive pain in the back of my neck, and just laying there thinking, that's it, I'm done. I never want to swing my leg over a dirt bike again. Like, if I walk away from this, that's it. I couldn't care less. At that point, I thought about everything but riding a dirt bike. But probably because the past experience, I knew what was in for a spinal cord injury. Will I have kids? Will I enjoy things again? Like, there was so many unknowns that I wasn't sure about.
Going through your head while you're lying on the track.
Laying on the track, you think it's funny. You really think about everything bar riding a dirt bike, which up until that point was the most important thing in my life.
And it's all the little things that come back.
It's all the little things that in the end seem that are really probably really more important to you, but you just kind of, at 19, you kind of push them aside like, oh, that'll happen. But, when you're in a position where you think, oh, Jesus, this might never happen, it gets you thinking.
Alex McKinnon was one of the most career-focused and laser-focused people that I've met. I remember hearing him tell a story about, for years, he'd just been working towards being a professional football player. And then as he was laying on the turf after his injury, football was the last thing in his mind. He was happy to never play football again. He just wanted to have a good outcome for a lot of other life experiences. So I don't think you're alone there, that the thing that causes the injury all of a sudden becomes like your lowest priority.
Oh, definitely. When you're in a dire position, you really find out what's actually really important to you. Dirt bikes, that was well down the list at that point. Still is.
I remember having a conversation with some of my mates, and we were talking about someone that they had a problem with their foot, and the mates are talking about, they might have to get their foot amputated or something, and they're going, that's so shit, so bad. And I remember sitting there and I'd go, I would amputate my foot in a second if it meant that I had all the other freedoms back, like, upper body movement, all your bowel, bladder, sexual function, all those other little things back to complete normalcy. I would cut my leg off in a second, and they kind of take, because before my accident, I'd say the same thing, had to amputate my foot. It's the worst thing in the world, your life's over. Right
you
now, give it for a second.
Oh, it's funny. Like I play wheelchair rugby with like, a few quad amputees, and like I look at them and go, man, you don't understand. Like, man, you travel the world like it, and that's like easy. Like you're missing a few limbs here and there, but like to get around, like is no issue at all. Like you go and travel, you can travel on your own and stuff. Like don't have to worry about pressure sores. Don't have to worry about just the logistical nightmare of being a quad traveling. And like when you're on the court, like you are the strongest man at any given point. You know, you've got 3 other dudes you can use as human sacrifices.
Yeah. Even paras have it good.
Oh yeah, so like, you know, I think I even watched a thing about Mike Whitehead, who's the captain of the Canadian wheelchair rugby team. You know, he asked his son, Mike Whitehead's got a spinal cord injury, and he said to his son, like, if you could have any disability, like, what would it be? And this is before I knew Zach Medell. He goes, I'd be like Zach. And Zach's a quad amputee. He's missing most of his fingers and below his knees. He's like, yeah, I'd be Zach. And he goes, because I could play any really sport I want. I could play rugby. I could play basketball. You know, I could do canoeing. So that's, you know, when you're desensitized to it like that, he's quad amputee. Best thing in the world.
Yeah. I think we've spoken about this a fair bit as well, is that it comes back to that, although someone may be worse off than you, doesn't mean your problems don't matter. You know, someone that is, you know, double amputee, but they've still got the upper body, that still absolutely sucks for them, obviously, because that's the worst they've had. And then, you know, there's people worse off than us, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't suck for us as well.
No, but I think it's all a matter of perspective.
Yeah, perspective is what it's all about.
When, you know, I look, you know, it depends on what side of where you're sitting, where you're looking at. Like, you know, quads always want to be paras, and paras always want to be able bods. You know, that'll never change. Like, and you know, the problems we go through, you know, some of it good, some of it's better, some of it's worse. You know, some, you know, different disability has its pluses and minuses too that we don't have to deal with, but they do. Like but yeah, it's all a matter of perspective.
I think anytime you lose any quality of life, just the human condition, unless you're a Zen yoga meditating person, it's your brain just instantly focuses on what you've lost, and that's an awesome skill to have, which I'm far from mastering, but it's easy to forget what you still have. And I think that's what we try and tell people is it's okay to feel sad about things that you've lost, but also don't forget what you still have and what you're still able to do.
I believe it's as long as you keep it into perspective. You know, you keep what you can do more than what you can't. Like it's, you know, it's easy to say. It's another thing putting that into practice.
Absolutely.
Did having your dad and mate go through similar experiences give you any sort of comfort, or be able to go to them for advice? Or
I think it did definitely help. But what I like, you know, I obviously had to go out and outdo the both of them. Like, you know, as if being a para wasn't fun enough. I thought having a sea-level injury would just really was just a small flex on them, to be honest.
Just needed all the attention.
But yeah, no, it definitely does. Like, Dad understood, you know, what I was going through very early on. I couldn't move anything for weeks, you know, and he was there every morning at 6 a.m. He was in the hospital, give me breakfast, and just kind of be around. I think just to have a familiar face that I wasn't going on my own. It helped immensely. Like, he didn't know exactly what I was going through, but had a good enough idea of what it was like to lay in that bed. You know, we literally laid in the exact same bed spot that he did his whole stay. Room 2,
same room, weren't you?
You know, room 2, bed in the, you know, top right corner. You know,
that's eerie.
It's kind of eerie, yeah. Like, I still remember being pushed into the spinal unit and the head nurse there, the CN or whatever they call them. I remember you. You know, that's such a... And it, like, obviously the spinal, it hadn't changed in 10 years. I still remember the big old clunky doors as you go through, you know, the old lino. Like, I still remember it all.
Just unheard. It's just an insane story. Your dad, your best mate, and then you and to be in the same bed, like, yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's, and we've said it. We talk about it all the time. Like, I don't know if you'd come across many people that would have, this kind of, lightning effectively striking twice.
How did your mum and sister deal with your injury in comparison to how they dealt with your dad's?
It's kind of hard for me to say how they dealt with dad's. I was very young, but I imagine it's very similar to how they kind of dealt with mine and how we deal with everything. It's a team effort. Everyone just kind of, what's done is done, and we kind of move on with it and get the best scenario we can out of what's happened. I accepted it very early. What has happened, and I think and that kind of helps everyone. The fact that I was so strong and as good about it as I was, I think that kind of just helps everyone, and it's a flowing effect. They were helping me as much as I was helping them.
I imagine, like you said, it was a team effort that, as much as if one person's having a bad day, then it's up to the other people to pick them up, and then the next day that person might be having a bad day. It's up to the others to pick them up then, and, everyone just helps each other out.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to have their bad days, but, like you said, if there's a strong support system around, you deal with it. You let that person have the bad day and you get up and you move on.
Yeah, I think, when everyone's trying to put a brave face on for each other, it definitely helps. Like, we always had a kind of, we always had a say, and like, I didn't really break down about my injury till about a couple of months in. So I fully, it just kind of fully hit me one night, the severity of it. And I remember breaking down, and it's kind of been the way I've dealt with everything since. I remember Mum saying, you can cry tonight, cry as much as you want, because, take the pity out of yourself, whinge and complain, but tomorrow you have to get up and carry on. Like, don't let this snowball. Do whatever you need to tonight, and if you need to cry tomorrow night, do the same thing, but you got to get up tomorrow morning, get out of bed, and keep on pushing. So, and I think that's probably been one of the biggest helps for me. Like, it's okay to break down, but you got to pick yourself up and carry on the next day. You can't let it dwell.
Yeah, definitely good advice, I think, for anyone out there dealing with anything, that it's okay to let it get you down and deal with it, but then get up and get going again.
Yeah, because laying in bed doesn't get you anywhere. Like, especially with this kind of injury, you got to get up, you got to get moving.
How did your dad deal with your accident? Did he have any sort of, sense of guilt for anything?
I don't think guilt would be the right word. I think disbelief.
Yeah.
I honestly think disbelief would be the big one to kind of sum up my injury. Like, the whole thing, lightning striking twice, it's kind of unheard of. And then for me to do it worse, he definitely did struggle with it for a while, just knowing what this whole spinal cord injury thing was about. And then, but I think, going back to what we said before, that just how strong I coped and dealt with it and accepted it definitely made things a lot easier for him. If I hadn't have been as strong, I don't know. He says himself, he doesn't know if he could have coped with it as well either. But yeah, it's, we get, as a team, we all got through it.
Were there any moments that you did witness your mum and dad break down after your accident?
Not me personally, no. I didn't see it. And I haven't really spoke to them about that either. We were just, as a team, as you said, we just kind of got through it. If someone's having, sure, there's plenty of rough times for all of us, but as a whole, I think we got through it as best we could.
What roles have each of your family members played in your life and your recovery post-accident?
My family's played a massive role. I don't think I would be as strong as I am without their help and support. As I said, Dad was in the hospital every day for the 6 or 7 months I was there. He was there every morning to help give me breakfast and just kind of just be around, just give me someone just a familiar face to be. And then Mum and Megan would come in anytime, most nights, any chance they could. And then just as far as when I first got out of hospital, you know, to allow me to get as much, you know, rehab and physio that I could, mum and dad decided they'd pick up the slack, drive me around, you know, put me to bed, bits and things like that, just so that way I could attend Making Strides 5 days a week.
I remember at the start when you started at Strides, well, I think maybe after about 6 months and you went to doing 3 days a week, you did 4 hours of rehab plus FES. And there was a period of time where your dad would be there. He'd be there from the start and he'd be there for the whole 6 hours watching all your rehab. And
yeah, like he was there, like he was a trooper. I'm sure there was a few long boring days for him. And it's funny, like he got the iPad, and you know, I think that iPad single-handedly built, you know, the house that, you know, we live in now. But yeah, but you know, on the same, you know, flip side of the token, like if it wasn't that, we would have been doing something together anyway, whether it be, you know, traveling around the country, riding dirt bikes, or going to a practice track, or working on a dirt bike. We'd spend that much time together anyway.
And of course, now Megan still drives you to Strides. And
yeah, she drives around bits and places, you know, puts up me when I'm drunk. You know, I'm sure there's a few conversations we've had that I don't remember.
that's a two-way street, isn't it? Putting up with each other when they're drunk.
Yeah, look, it can be at times. You know, some of us need to find the limit, I guess.
yeah, join the club. How do you feel about those roles your family have had to play? Is it taking an impact on you having to see what they've had to do, or is it, like you said, just get on with it?
I would have liked them not to have done it. But, you know, they were more than happy to, and especially in the early stages, kind of help me with what I needed to get the best outcome. So as a team, we've always banded together and kind of got done what we needed to do. Yeah, so them helping me out was, I don't know, I could never repay what they've done and kind of still do. And it just comes back to that thing, like you're only as strong as the people around you. Like, you know, if they weren't taking me to Strides or picking up the slack to allow me to do that, you know, I don't know if I'd have the strength I am now, or, you know, and like we always did have a goal, like if you don't walk, it won't be because we haven't tried. So that was kind of the mentality for the first couple of years. You know, let's give it a red hot crack. You know, let's shoot for the moon. But if we don't hit the moon, you know, we might land on the stars, or, you know, land somewhere further than where we are now. So, you know, it's been an absolute pleasure that they were actually able to do that for me.
Who out of your family do you think has taken your injury the hardest?
I don't think anyone's taken it any harder than anyone else. I think, you know, everyone has taken it differently in their own sense. But yeah, like I think for everyone, like especially initially, it's just such a shock to the system. Like we thought, like getting up in the morning, like, or going to bed, or even getting in the car, like this is such an effort. Everything seems like such an effort now. But, you know, once you start doing it like every day, like you forget everything before that. So you just got to carry on. And then it just becomes a new type of normal. If you stop dwelling on the past and looking forward, like it does wonders for you.
I know we talked about you can't wrap yourself up in cotton wool after these accidents, and I suppose whether you believe in fate or not, at the end of the day, there is a degree of lack of control over these unfortunate incidents. Did any of your mates stop riding after your accident though?
I don't a few mates did stop riding, but I don't know if I was the precursor for that. We were at an age where, you know, riding dirt bikes, you can only do that for so long. Like you gotta go get a job, gotta go to uni, gotta go make some money. So like eventually, you know, I was 19. A lot of my mates were, you know, 20, 21. So it becomes a point where, you know, if you're not making money, well, you got to make money. Like you got to make money somewhere, and your parents aren't going to fund you to go be a motocross bum for the rest of your life. So I think me having my injury probably made that decision to go, to go to work maybe a little bit easier. But I don't know if I was the driving force behind all that.
You're now working with formal or paid support workers, so luckily your family's having to do less and less. Do you feel like when you started using the formal support workers and your family had to do less, it allowed you to spend more meaningful time together as they didn't have to fulfill those roles?
No, I don't think it's honestly changed our relationship really that much. Like, I've always had such a great relationship with my parents, with Megan, my sister. Like, we are actually quite a tight-knit family. As I say, like, I used to spend that much time driving in a van with my old man. Like, I've spent that much time with them. I couldn't do what I do without my parents. So, it hasn't really changed, like, our dynamic. I'm just happy that they have to do a lot less and they can kind of focus on themselves a lot more. But yeah, no, like, it didn't really put any strain on our relationship or anything when they were helping me out a lot. It was just kind of like, this is what we do. And, because I think we're working towards a common goal, that didn't, we knew what the reason we were doing this for. Like, it was to allow me to do more physio and get as strong as I could. It just wasn't because I couldn't be bothered or whatever any other reason was.
You said it's so you mentioned that you were all working towards that goal of getting as good as you could. You weren't gonna, it wasn't gonna be because you haven't tried that you haven't got to those goals. And by doing that, you've achieved a lot post accident. What would be, or can you tell us some of what you think have been the most achievements you're most proud of?
I think along the way I've had achieved a lot along the way, and I think that's what's kind of kept driving me. Whether it was, getting wrist movement in hospital, like, or, being able to push a manual wheelchair for the first time, or got a wheelchair rugby for the first time and seeing what those guys can do. And then getting to the point where I kept training, then I could actually push a rugby chair and actually be of some use on the court. Like, the first time I played rugby, I was just a guy doing circle work and not really doing anything at all. And then
Now you're an absolute pest on the court. Played against Ryan and he manages to get his little guard in front of his chair caught up in your wheels, and you're the most able person on the court and you cannot move. You cannot do a thing. He's good at what he does, being a pest.
Yeah, like, and, I never ever thought
on and off the court.
Yeah. So, yeah, some people would say it comes naturally. Yeah, like, I never ever thought I'd even get to that point. Like, first time I ever played, like, there's a video, like, my favorite video, there's a video of, like, the ball gets inbounded one end of the court, the other team scores, and then they inbound the ball and it comes back down to my end of the court before I've even managed to turn around and start pushing. Like, so I never thought I'd get to the strength to actually play and be competitive and, get any strength at all. And then just by doing that, then it's led on to so much more, like, to move out. I never thought I'd move out on my own, or even the most recent one, like, and I think today it's my most proud achievement, is I've started cooking. Like, I never thought I'd cook, even though, the number one item on the menu is my hand. Like, I've cooked that thing more times than I've cooked anything else. I never thought I'd actually, like, provide for myself in that kind of sense.
Just to give the people an idea of the evolution of your independence, when you first started at Strides, we would be feeding you your lunch, whatever that was, usually sushi. And I remember when you started trying to feed yourself and even, like, unwrapping your sandwiches, and we get half an hour lunch breaks and you'd still be there at the end some days trying to get the plastic off your sandwich, but you wouldn't let us help. And now it's lightning fast, like as fast as the next person. And
oh yeah, it was such a tedious process to start off with. Like, even at that point, I couldn't push a wheelchair. Like, I couldn't push it out of sight in the dark night. Like, there was little lips and stuff, and I was forever getting stuck and calling you or Jess or Beck to come and drag me out of the wall somewhere, or actually just to push me into the office for lunch. If I didn't get them to push me in there, I would have missed lunch.
Have you had any conversations with your family about how those accomplishments and each step of independence have made them feel?
Oh, look, I don't think I need to have a conversation. Like, every step along the way, I think my mum is more excited than I ever am. Like, I remember, like, one of the first time I could pick a chip up and eat it, like, at the hospital. Like, that was, to her, that was like gold. You know, then every time I kind of tell her, like, you know, this happened at rugby, or I've got quicker here, or today at strides, like, my leg's locked out, and here's a picture of me standing on my own. Like, you know, she's more pumped than I am. Like, to me, I'm so focused on an end goal so much further down the track. Like, this is just like to me, this is just a marker that I need to hit to get there. Like, I've hit that now. All right, what's next? But, you know, mum kind of makes me realize, like, that's such a big deal. And I need to kind of slow down sometimes and really and think about what I've actually done and
Help you focus on what you've achieved along the way rather than just trying to get to the end goal.
and just kind of slow down and look back at the path that I've got to get here. Like, you know, as weak as I am in a lot of things, I'm quite strong and can do kind of punch above my weight in some other things. So no, like, yeah, you can definitely see that the stronger I get, does boost everyone else's morale.
So from all your experiences with your dad's injury, your mates, yours, what has been the biggest lesson you think you take away from it all?
The biggest lesson, like, you know, I've learned so many lessons along the way. Like, I learned more when I was 10 than I kind of knew at that point. It's not till I look back now and, you know, learned a lot of lessons and just like how important family is. And, you know, once something's happened, like, it's how you respond is the determining factor. Like, you know, you can sit and dwell on it, but, you know, it's how you get up the next day and carry on and deal with what's been thrown at you defines the outcome in the end. Just the toughness of just carrying on. I think it's definitely helped me with this injury, I think. Just accepting it and then just keep pushing and whatever you want is possible. Like, you just got to keep trying.
Good lesson, I think. Well done. Awesome. Well, Ryan, thanks for coming on and having a chat with us. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, lads.
Cheers coming on, mate. Looking forward to 2021 Christmas photo with you and your sister. Any ideas what that's going to be yet?
No idea yet. It's usually November's usually when the Christmas photo kind of comes to mind, and it's a last minute scramble usually. Usually it's Christmas Eve by the time we're rushing and we've fucked around for 2 months and can't decide on what's actually happening.
Well, if people want to see that on our Instagram page, we'll have Ryan's socials up there. You can go check it out.
It'd be an absolute treat.
Our next guest is someone that we feel very privileged to be able to have a chat with and share their story. Over the last couple of months, you may have seen the hashtag Move for Lex. Well, that was all started by the family of a promising young triathlete named Alexa Leary, who sustained a brain injury after a road cycling accident. Her father, Russell, and older sister, Madison, have agreed to speak with us and share the unique perspective of having a loved one who is still in hospital receiving treatment for the lasting effects of her accident. We know the family have a lot going on at the moment, so really appreciate Russell and Madison taking the time to come and discuss how this life-changing injury has affected this larger-than-life character and her family and friends. Keep an eye on our social media pages for a release date for this highly anticipated episode.
Guys, as some of you may know, Beyond Blue has given us the green light to offer their support. So if any of our podcast episodes bring up any negative emotions and you need support, please contact Beyond Blue on 1300 224 636 or go online to beyondblue.org.au and navigate their website to their online chat. Don't forget to check on each other and remember, it ain't weak to speak.
And as I mentioned, guys, the social media pages there. Our Instagram is the unaffected_podcast, and you can find links there to the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Facebook pages. Our Facebook, also just search the Unaffected Podcast. And as I said, you can listen to episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But check out those social media pages for release dates for future episodes, to find out who we have coming up, future guests. And if you want to get in touch with us for questions for upcoming guests, if you want to give us ideas for any upcoming guests, or just help spread the word of our page and get our message out there to as many people as possible, help us out, guys. That'd be great.
Thanks, guys.